Welcome to What the Health? The podcast where anything health is fair game. There's a lot of garbage advice and misinformation out there that can leave you feeling stumped and stuck. Together, let's sift through the sea of BS and find the best ways to get healthy and stay healthy. Join the team as we tackle the trends and bust the myths about health and wellness. Here are your hosts, Dr. Dan Turo, Angela Turo, and Dr. Riley Brown.
All right, welcome back. We are back with Dr. Anna Owen of Keystone Physicians, Direct Primary Care. See, look at that.
Also smooth, all at once, all like 20, yeah, it's a lot like.
How do people find you? Website?
You.
Me.
Yes. Dr. Dan has been an amazing referral source for me. But website and social media being some of the bigger sources. I have my profile up on a couple of direct primary care kind of conglomerates, the Direct Primary Care Alliance, DPC Frontier, things like that. So people who are looking for DPC and then the Pittsburgh area, I would come up. But yeah, the website being the best way, because then you can schedule a meet and greet with me. You can find my phone number and give me a call. It goes directly to my phone. I'm the one who answers, so it's not scary. And yeah, that would be the kind of the best way.
You don't have to take 20 minutes getting like through to hit one, hit three.
Yeah, you do have to hit 3 or 1. I don't forget. It's one of them because the spam was taking away my sanity. So you do have to click one button, but you don't have to, wait. You don't have to talk to a medical assistant and then wait, and then the nurse calls you back and then you wait, and then maybe you get a portal message, you get me on the phone.
Very good. So let's start. So we just thank you so much for sharing. And if you didn't watch part 1, go back and watch part 1 first of Dr. Anna sharing the amazing moment that, really said, she was not going to work in the system of medicine the way it stands right now, because we can agree with some of what we talked about last episode, that the system is broken. And again, that was partly why, because I thought about becoming a medical doctor, becoming a DO, which again, it's very hard to even tell the difference between an MD and DO anymore, because the DO was actually founded, which is doctor of osteopathy, for those who don't know, was founded very similarly. In fact, the profession was founded the same year as chiropractic. Mm-hmm. And, where they were adjusting, or they do what's called OSM, osteopathic spinal manipulation, chiropractors do adjustments for the spine. If you look at them side by side, you might not know the difference. Again, philosophically, there is some differences, but the reason I'm getting at that is osteopaths were swallowed up by medicine. Mm-hmm. And that happened, I think, probably, again, a very poor timeline, but probably somewhere in the 1900s, somewhere in the mid-1900s. Chiropractic is very close to that. You go to something, and this is part of the challenge that I get with my profession, is like you say chiropractor, and you go to 10 different clinics and you get 10 different things that people do. But again, you go to 10 different medical doctors, depending on the specialty, it's going to be very different. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but the challenge is there's not very much consistency when you define it. But anyway, I looked at becoming a DO. I looked at becoming a physical therapist, which again, they do amazing work. We met one-on-one our referral groups, who I'm very excited to work with. And again, when you have the right team around you,
the team is key.
Yeah, it's like you are going to be able to get healthy and stay healthy. Like that's the goal, right? That's the journey, is to walk in health. And it's a lot easier to do than most people think. It takes work, but it's a lot easier to do when you have the right people and the right information around you. And the problem is the system is broken, and it teaches you how to get sick, unfortunately, and how they keep you in illness. So, because that's how they make more money.
Coverage, right? So people use their insurance to access healthcare. So if your insurance company doesn't value chiropractic services, massage therapy, acupuncture, physical therapy beyond just whatever the 3 sessions a week for 2 weeks you need, all that. If they don't value that, then it's same thing. You get siloed out of the game, right? Because people want to use their insurance. They pay a lot of money for this insurance, and they kind of let that guide where they're going to get their healthcare. And that's not working, right? We're not getting healthier. So I think, we're trying to break the mold a little bit and get that team together, so that way when we have patients that understand why this is good for them. We can really use the power of the entire team, because I cannot do what you do, not even close. I went to an osteopathic residency, but I never learned manipulation at all. And so it's very important to have everybody.
Yes. So that team approach, and that's how we're going to break the mold of the system. It's going to take a grassroots, and it's going to take an individual to make the decision that you see the system, you see how broke it is, whether your parents have gone through it, you're going through it, and you see yourself in your 30s, 40s, 50s getting, going downhill with your health. And if I hear one more person say, I'm just getting older, that drives me nuts. Because what about the 80, 90-year-old that's out doing yoga, that's out walking marathons, that's, hiking and
doing the pond skim party at Seven Springs. There was an 87-year-old doing the pond skim.
So it's like, don't tell me I'm just getting older. That is such a myth and a fallacy. Mm-hmm. We are genetically designed to live well into our 90s and beyond, and do it very, very healthfully. Now, again, the system, not just medicine, but just our entire, society, culturally, our entire Western civilization is built upon illness and keeping people stuck there, because that's how they make a lot of money, unfortunately. But we're designed to be healthy. So it's going to take the individual recognizing that, and making the conscious choice of, I'm not going to do what my insurance tells me to do. I'm going to do what I know works for me and my family, and make the decision to, invest in my health and well-being. Yeah. And so that's where, so you had the moment where you're like, I'm doing things differently. Yep. So now I probably, Keystone Physicians was probably born, at least from a visionary perspective at that point. So talk to me about that. What is it that you are doing differently, that you are now separating yourself from the system, and how does that impact the care for your current and future patients?
Yeah. So exactly like you said before, removing, and that might have been part one, but removing the practitioner from the insurance just really gives us a whole cup we can now fill. All this time, all this lack of stress, all this amazing that we can then start giving out to people, right? Which was the whole point in the future. So once I realized I could get my cup back and fill it on my own, I came across a direct primary care physician in Pittsburgh who was having a teaching cooking class for women physicians. And I went, and she was having an amazing time with her entire life. And I was like, this is finally the answer. Like, direct primary care is what it's called. That's the name.
That you can actually see it.
I can actually see
tangible. It's achievable. It's attainable.
Because I knew I didn't want to be hired by one of the big systems. I knew I couldn't be an independent insurance taking doctor and not work all the time and be miserable. And so I was like, okay, now what? Do I just not do medicine at all? And then I heard of the direct primary care and was like, this is the way. This is the way I can have the time. This is the way I can have the limited amount of patients that I know very well. So direct primary care doctors have 300 to 500 patients on their panel, as opposed to a typical primary care doctor would have something in the thousands, 2, 3, depending on what area you're in. So I could keep that small. I could own my own business, which again was really important to me, because then I can make the rules. It's not corporate. I'm corporate. So that was huge. And I've lived in Pennsylvania my entire life. I've always loved the Keystone symbol. I live on the turnpike. So between Pittsburgh and my home, I have spent years of my life probably on that turnpike, going back and forth and back and forth. So the Keystone symbol is always something I've really kind of felt connected to. I don't know how sad that is, but
it's not.
But I loved it, and I love Pennsylvania. It's such a unique state. We're really cool here, and so that homage to Pennsylvania. And then the other thing I used to always say is that I want to be people's quarterback for their healthcare team. I want to be someone who takes what all your specialists say and then personalizes it, individualizes it for you. And helps you make a good decision based on all of this information that we've gathered about what we're actually going to do next. Because it might be slightly different than the typical guidelines for someone with this condition or things like that. So lost my train of thought.
So you were, well, first of all, let me say this about Keystone. I didn't even share this with you, but one of my mentors in chiropractic, Dr. Walter V. Pierce, I've never had a chance to meet him because he unfortunately passed in '93. But I know I was friends with his son, who has also since passed, but friends with his oldest daughter. But Dr. Pierce, always, he made he did the cervical spine, and he talked about analyzing the cervical spine. And he called the fifth cervical, C5, the keystone of the neck. Because if you look at the curvature of the spine, it's literally the keystone, and so
holding that arch together.
Exactly. So he was one of the first ones. There was Dr. Reaver was before him who really started adjusting, C5 first, but Dr. Pierce was one of the first ones to adjust it, face down, and just really work to restore the cervical curve from back to front. And so he called it. So he used all of his work in his seminar. He used the keystone. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of a connection there.
Right? Yeah, exactly. No, it's perfect. But yeah, that was.
Yeah, so I love it. And again, it's such a great, it's such a great symbol, right, for, foundational, holding up the entire structure. So when you're talking about someone's health, right, one of my favorite, I've always shared this with, health talks that I used to do, it's not so much since the pandemic, although I'd like to get back to doing, more, again, discussion talks with patients, educational resources. But one of my favorite movie quotes was, it was the Count in The Princess Bride, and he was talking to the prince, and the prince is just, you know what I'm referring to? The prince is going down like, I've got my country's 500th anniversary to plan, my wife to murder, and someone to frame for it, and the Count, his assistant, comes over to him and is like, you need to get your rest. You don't have your health. You don't have anything. And it's like, it was just such a small, little, just passing line, but it's just so fundamental. And if you don't have your health and time are the two greatest assets. If you have time, you can regain your health. And if you have your health, you can do whatever you want with your time. And so I think that's really what we're trying to get to with delivering, good clinical care to the people in front of us. So what are you doing that, again, removing yourself from the system, you're taking yourself, so yep. you do direct pay, correct?
Direct pay, yes. Okay. Patients pay me monthly. So we typically talk ahead of time, but then they sign up, and then they get charged on the same day every month. So they have the ability to pause service or stop service or call me if finances have changed. And we can make it work, right? Which is really, really cool. You're not locked into any contracts that you can only change once or twice a year, because that sounds to me like something that I'm purposefully trying to stay away from. I want people to have the freedom to make the choice with their healthcare dollar where they're going. Yeah. And you can use HSA, FSA funds as of January 2026 to pay for DPC funds. So that's huge.
Well, and so now, you're going back. So let's go back to, because you really talked about that, the conservative or the initial view of direct primary care, and and that's when I first met you and we talked. It's I'm like, you're going back to that farm doctor, that farm doctor who knew everyone in the community, and everyone knows Dr. Anna or Dr. Smith, everyone knows who the doctor of the town is, and and then that doctor also knows everyone's issues and what they need to do. So it's you're walking in the store and you bump into each other, and it's oh, hey, how's your such and such, and it's it's just it's so community based. Mm-hmm. It's communication, community, and that's where I feel you're going back to, and that's you've had these conversations with me about when you're talking to patients, their initial meet and greet with you, their initial appointment could be 90 minutes to 2 hours, right? Yeah. That's unheard of in in the current system, right? Yeah. But yeah, that's what people need, right? They need to know that they have someone in their corner facilitating their care, and again, also someone who's up to date on all the, most recent procedures and maybe what things could be avoided, and, just being that advocate for their health and well-being. So am I
that's perfect. Yeah, and open to alternative options and figuring out, other ways to do things, because I have that time. My schedule isn't packed because I don't need it to be packed to get reimbursed appropriately by insurance, right? So I can have fewer visits in a day. I can do things over the phone if it's like a relatively reasonable thing that we can just talk about. I don't even need you to come physically to the office.
Just pause that, because double click on that, because so many times, people, they call their primary care or their pediatrician, which is basically primary care for children, and they're like, well, come into the office, right? We need you to come in. Yeah. And because they don't get billed, they don't get reimbursed if you don't come into the office. They don't get reimbursed for a phone conversation. But by you, again, having a relationship with the patient, and their
payment's already been handled.
It's already been handled.
Yeah,
so it's like, it's like, what, maybe try XYZ, and, try XYZ. Let's see how you do the next 24 hours. Call me in the morning, right?
Yeah.
And again, it's like,
call me in the morning. I love that.
So it's just
let's just talk tomorrow and see how things are going.
So often with patients, they're like, well, should I come back in? And I'm like, you know what? Let's give it 48 hours and then let's touch base. Yeah. And, and I have no problem texting patients. And, you don't either. It's like, you literally, that to me, you have your doctors, you have your doctors, phone that you can talk to them.
And I enjoy it. I genuinely love it. I'm smiling. I'm having a good time. I was eating lunch one time talking to one of my patients because he had a bunch of doctor's appointments kind of that day, and he just kind of wanted to go through what had all happened and just update me briefly. And I was like, hey, by the way, I'm eating my sandwich, but like, let's keep talking,
it's like not rushing them off the phone. And
we talked for half an hour, and then I had a really good rundown of what all his different specialists wanted him to do. And that was really helpful for me, because now I can take even better care of him.
Absolutely. And patients want that. They want that type of care, but they've just not been able. And again, we don't blame individual doctors. Again,
they're doing the best they can, and they're doing much better than I could have done in that system. I was never efficient enough or anything to have done well, and my patients wouldn't have done well.
Yeah.
But I love that I can take those full visits. We talk in comfortable chairs in your normal clothes for, a solid 45 minutes at least before we talk about getting into a gown and doing a more invasive exam. So you know me really well, by that point. We're much more comfortable with each other. I can do a very in-depth physical that looks over the whole body instead of only being targeted to what the issues, may be. And then, like you say, I can do procedures. You don't get charged a procedure fee or anything like that. If I use an excessive amount of equipment and maybe need some reimbursement for that, we would talk about that ahead of time. And so you would know what it's going to cost even before I do it, which is crazy. I know what it costs to do things in my office. If you ask me a question, I can give you an answer on it most of the time, because it's not a fake number made up by insurance.
Yeah. Just, again, the transparency, that's what I've always been about, right? It's like, once I do someone's initial eval and I, lay out I can see what's going on, and I give them the first adjustment, see how they respond, and have them come back to do a review of findings, like go over all their x-rays with them. And it's like, let's talk about what it's going to take. And then again, I lay out, this is what it's going to cost for, 3, 6, 9, whatever, how many months we estimate that you're going to be under more, condition-based or corrective-based care. And then again, my goal is ultimately to get everyone to like a wellness maintenance, system where it's like, I only need to see you, once every couple of weeks or once every couple of months, but it's like, it might take you time to get there, because if you didn't come see me until your 40s, and it's like you got 4 decades of life experience, as I like to call it, then we might have some stress to unwind. And and I'm sure you see the same thing. People coming with all of these health concerns from so many different specialists, and it's like, you know what, you might need to see someone, on a weekly basis for the first couple of weeks, but it's like, let's get it all under control, get it out, get it under control, and let's map out a plan.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. That ability to sit down with the patient and not have the secret agenda in the back of my head about how I'm going to get paid for that visit, but really like the patient sets the agenda. Like, what do you care about?
Yeah.
If your blood pressure is slightly out of range, but you care more about your anxiety, which they might be related, then let's talk about the anxiety. Let's try to figure out how we can get your psychology a little bit more positive to try to then see what effects that might have on the body. We know that if we get anxiety under control, that blood pressure and heart rate and things can improve.
So you mean you're not just going to throw medication at people, right?
Yeah, I don't need to give you something that's maybe going to make you feel bad in some way.
Or make
right
something
away.
else worse, right?
But I will give you the information that, like, hey, if your blood pressure hits these ranges, then we're going to have to talk, because I don't want you to have a heart attack or a stroke, and you need to know that those are real risks. And we'll talk about all the risks. But if in the meantime we want to spend 1 month, 2 months, 3 months focusing on these lifestyle changes, right? This lifestyle medicine, which is another thing that I fell in love with in residency.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, and that does not fit into an insurance system because it's very hard to bill for that. You can't code it. It's not necessarily, I mean, you can a little bit, but not really. But yeah, so lifestyle medicine is very much in line with the chiropractic philosophy of, like, a medication may not be the best first step. Often it is looking at your diet, your exercise, your sleep. If you take risky substances, so alcohol, drugs, things like that. Keeping a positive psychology, right? Trying to keep your mind right in the midst of a kind of a scary world right now, and trying to figure out ways to keep that outlook as positive as you can. And then connecting with your community. And that is a huge piece of it that's missing, is the community piece. We've all become increasingly isolated, especially in the last 5-6 years. And so getting back out there, connecting with your neighbors, as Mr. Rogers says, finding the helpers, doing all that you can to really from the ground up change the way your life is structured, away from what society has built for you, and towards something that's got health kind of running through it.
It's so refreshing to hear a medical doctor, because if you told me in chiropractic school and I would be interviewing a medical doctor someday about lifestyle medicine, I'd be like, you're crazy. But yeah, here we are. And I think that's just where, we're heading to, right? Society and culture is craving for this. They're craving for a solution for their health and well-being, but the solution is going back to how we lived 100+ years ago. Have you done any research on the blue zones? Have you heard of the blue zones? That's literally, right? Because you're talking about that.
Yeah, they're hand in hand. It's basically looked at those areas, and a lot. That's where, like, kind of the positive psychology and the community connections come from. Because, like, eating right, exercising, okay, fine, that's old as dirt recommendations. But the blue zones do so well because their communities are really intertwined. They really take care of each other.
Yeah.
And that's everything.
Yes.
Right? Villages, everything.
Yep, it takes a village. So again, discussing that, and again, so refreshing to hear you talk about this, because those are, the foundations of health. And it's like, when you do that, you take care of 80 to 90% of chronic illness just by virtue of doing that, before you even need to tap into, medication. So it's like, helping people understand that, and again, being their guide.
Because it's hard work, like you were saying before, the patient has to heal themselves a little bit there, and it is hard because you have to unlearn everything that you've been teaching yourself as an adult person, and really try to be creative on how to make these things work in your life, and how to make changes to keep it going. But then that's why I'm here, right? Is for outsource that to me. Let me do the work of coming up with an exercise plan that feels reasonable for you, and obviously we work together on that decision. And then I'll keep calling and say, how's it going? And you're like, I have yet to make it to the gym on a Tuesday. And it's like, okay, well, maybe gym on Tuesday isn't working.
Yes, let's try something else. Yes.
Can we do something in your house on Tuesdays, if you can't get to the gym, or things like that. I prescribe food, which is a crazy thing. I prescribe blueberries more often than you'd expect.
Nice.
But the polyphenols, the antioxidants, all of that is just, you can't beat the benefits. And so instead of restricting what you eat, adding nutritious foods can do a lot. Addressing vitamin deficiencies with food, things like that. Fatigue, movement is one of the biggest solutions for fatigue. It seems counterintuitive, and depression, anxiety, all that mental health stuff.
There's more. I'm not a huge research person. I'm the, let me experience, my research is let me experience what's happened for myself and what I see in my patients, what works well. We don't need a $multi-million study to tell us that diet and exercise works, right? We know it works. It's just a matter of how does it work for that individual, right? Because again, there's different types of diets, and some people might do good on meat. Some people might do better on, different type of meat, more legumes, more veggies, more fruits. Like different people do have, our genetics vary slightly. And so some people do respond differently. And I know, my sister, who's our, functional trainer, she talks a lot about that, just listening to your body. And when you have someone who can be the facilitator and, help people, people understand, you become more aware, more in tune, and, you're able to recognize, when things are like, maybe that wasn't a good decision. Maybe I shouldn't have drank that type of beverage last night. It's so funny because my wife and I know exactly at this stage in our life, know exactly the adult beverages that flare us up. We have a headache the next morning, or wake up in the middle of the night with reflux, and it's like, I knew I was going to do this, but I did it anyway. It was a stupid decision. I'm going to make a better decision next time.
And that's it. And I want to be that sounding board, that third party that you can just bounce those things off of non-judgmentally, but just being like, coming up with the next best plan for what's going to help you, and maybe avoiding the risky substances that are making you feel poor, or doing it in moderation, right? And just planning your life around it a little bit better.
That was the one thing I found very interesting about the Blue Zones, right? Was because they talked about in every one of those, I think it was 9 or 10 cultures that they studied, every culture except one averaged 1 to 2 drinks a day. Which I was so shocked by. But
I wouldn't recommend.
No, exactly.
But it is. But even with that, they were able to.
But I think my theory behind it is they're moving. I think their food is much cleaner.
Oh, yes.
So their livers are probably much cleaner, less fatty.
Yeah, for sure.
And so their ability to process, and the type of alcohol they're drinking is probably crystal clear, right?
Yeah.
They're drinking
closer to the source.
Vodka, bourbon, scotch, whiskey, whatever. It's like they're drinking clear, clean, drinks, and it's like I think their bodies are just better able to process it versus again, you come to our country, and probably 80% of us have fatty livers that are just unable to process toxins because they're so bogged down with the toxins from our food and lack of movement and and then stress and anxiety. It's just again vicious cycle.
Yeah. So insert me in the middle of that cycle, and we can try to find a break point. Find a reasonable break point. And there's always something that you have in the back of your mind that you're like, this is the one thing that if I was gonna do something about it, it'd be this thing. Yeah. And then I'm the person that you can kind of outsource that to, and I will help you. So it's not such a big insurmountable task to just eat better, exercise. Like what? That doesn't help. That's an unhelpful statement.
Right, right. But again, in the system, you go into, your primary care doc, and that's what you get.
That's all we got time for.
Yeah. So it's like, eat better, exercise. So if you'd like more information, well, before we get into that, before we close out, what do you like to do when you're not seeing or talking to patients? What does Dr. Anna like to do on your quote unquote free time?
My quote unquote free time. I'm always a doctor, but I have a lot more free time now because I can, which is great. So I can prioritize my own health, which is crazy. I just planted seeds and transplants into my garden. So I have a pretty extensive vegetable garden.
What do you like? What do you plant?
My green beans have been shockingly, last year was my first year with a garden of my own with vegetables in it. I did just bush beans. Yeah. I tried to do pole beans to grow up my corn last year. It didn't work, but I tried. The Three Sisters, I did my best.
Nice.
So green beans have been crazy. I did actually have a great tomato crop last year. I just unfortunately was gone during the week that they all popped. And so I came home and they were all sad and rotten on the vine. And I was like, no. And then lettuces. I do well with my kind of succession planting of different lettuces. My mustard greens last year were just awesome. They've got this peppery, spicy taste to them. Oh, they're so good. And then my squash got decimated by squash bugs. So unfortunately I didn't get so many of them. But yeah, so this year, really focusing on carrots and beets and parsnips and some really hearty, good root vegetables from the soil because they're really good with like blood pressure and things like that. And then I planted yellow beans and purple green beans. So I'm very excited for my display of color that's coming this year.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I have another patient who does, purple sweet potatoes.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh. First of all, the vines are beautiful.
I can only imagine, yeah.
And oh my gosh, they come out. I mean, they look like beets. They look like the color of beets, but in a potato.
That actually sounds really good. Potatoes are on my list, but I've heard of different ways of growing them, and I just have to figure out like what's going to work best.
I'll see if I can get you some scrapes because he's going to bring you some next time.
That would be awesome.
So we'll get you some.
I'll get a bucket and start some potatoes in a bucket. And then biking would be.
Biking. I was going to ask you activity-wise.
Yeah. So I have an e-bike because I live in Pittsburgh and I live up a big hill. So it's uphill either way. You go to my house. So I have an e-bike just so I can get home reliably. But I love it. Taking it around the city and things like that. It really kind of opens up the area for me, which is nice. Awesome. So those are probably my two favorite things currently.
Beautiful. So for people to get a hold of you, what's the website? We'll put it underneath it in the comments.
So kpdpc.com. So the first letter of all the words.
Keystone Physicians Direct Primary Care.
Yep. kpdpc.com. We'll get you there. So will Keystone Physicians dpc.com, but that's longer and harder to. And then, that will have all the information that you need on it. Scheduling a meet and greet, they're free. 15, 20 minutes. I do it via Zoom, just so we can kind of get to know each other a little bit, make sure that there's nothing that I can't provide, right? If you're looking for a different type of practitioner and I'm not that kind, I want to be able to tell you that up front and not have you waste your money. And I can point you in the right direction of someone who's better suited for whatever you need. Or if everything seems great and it's exactly what both of us, think it should be, then we have you enroll. It's currently, I guess, $95 a month for adults, $50 for kids, and then that's month to month, so you get a lot of freedom there.
Beautiful. And eventually we're going to write a book, right?
Yeah,
right.
Oh, for sure.
I told her that. I don't think I told you that.
You did. For the first visit, yes. You were like, A, be on my podcast, B, we're writing a book.
Yes. There's a couple more things in there, but no, we are absolutely, because again, it's like this conversation is the exact conversation that we've been having for years. And again, in order to break free, it's going to have something to do with breaking the chains or breaking free from the system. And again, it's going to take practitioners like you and I to be able to provide the care, and then ultimately the decision for the patient to come and invest in that level of care. And again, ultimately, I think sometimes people think of the cost rate because they're paying these large premiums, and we get that, because things are so expensive. Not just healthcare, but things are so expensive. So it's like we understand that, but like when you that's part of the decision process, right? When you make that decision, I can't tell you the number of patients who they were like on the verge of like oh, do I start? Do I not start? And they started, and they never regret it. Like it's just because you're making the decision, and you get to make that. Like you're not just throwing it away and out the door, spending $700 a month on a premium that you're never going to get back. You're investing your healthcare dollars into a relationship that's going to, make positive strides, even if it baby strides, but it make positive steps towards your health and well-being.
Yeah.
So.
And you never know when you're going to need it, right? You never know when you're going to have that question or that urgent concern, and then not having to go to an urgent care or an ER or wait 6 weeks with an urgent thing, just hoping that your doctor will want to address it when it's time. It's hard, but it's going to be better.
It's going to be better.
Okay. Giving people the chance for it to be better.
Yeah. So if you're that next person, come on in, meet Dr. Anna Owen at her practice, and we have lots of referral, stuff that we'll pass out to any of our patients, and we're gonna, make sure that this information gets out there. So, thank you so much for stopping by. As I always say,
thank you for having me.
Thank you,
I
Dr.
appreciate
Anna.
it. This is fun.
All right, and we'll see everyone at the next one.
You've been listening to another episode of What the Health? The podcast where anything health is fair game, with your hosts, Dr. Dan, Angela, and Dr. Riley. Brought to you by Churro Family Chiropractic. If you'd like to learn more about some of the resources mentioned on this show, or you have questions about something that was discussed, please reach out through our website at www.turofamilychiropractic.com. Remember to like and subscribe to What the Health Podcast to catch all the latest episodes and replay your favorites. Thank you for listening, and remember, we're always here to help when you find yourself saying, "What the hell?"